We have a major Minnesota Wild trade update as a recent report has just revealed some new details regarding what it would take for the Wild to go ahead and get Kiefer Sherwood, but more importantly, what the Vancouver Canucks are asking for in return. And with some details that have dropped from a past trade attempt between these two parties, trade reports are starting to go absolutely insane for this Minnesota Wild team. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be breaking it all down here in this video. But before we do, I ask you guys one favor, and it's if you haven't already and you're looking for every single bit of your Minnesota Wild news every single day, we have it right here on the channel with things that are going on lately, the injuries to this team, how this team has been performing. I could go on and on. You're going to want to stay up to date, so be sure to hit that sub button. But let's jump straight into it. And first of all, I wanted to go over this tweet, which really sparked a big new conversation going over some things between not just the Vancouver Canucks and the Wild, but also Marco Rossi and the Canucks with Kiefer Sherwood and the Wild. But the report is that the price has been raised for Kiefer Sherwood. Now, this comes from NHL Trade Rumors, and I don't know their sources, so take this with a grain of salt, but they have in the past been correct. Vancouver wants a first-round pick plus a roster player from the Wild. The Wild offered a prospect to Vancouver, and they said no. That's what we theorized would be the deal here, the best for the Wild standpoint, because let's be honest, Kiefer Sherwood is not the greatest player. He's having a good year, yes, but when you're looking at what the Wild would give up for him, the amount they would have to give up for him, the amount they would have to pay him if they did not want him to just be a rental, it makes zero sense for this team. But the one big interesting thing here on the bottom is, are the Canucks still eyeing Marco Rossi? And we know there was conversation with them while Rossi was still under his RFA status and not under contract. There was a lot of conversation around the NHL. Would Rossi be traded? And the Canucks seem to be spearheading those rumors. But at this point right now, and with some new information that has been revealed from Joe Smith and Michael Russo of The Athletic, as we know, the two biggest insiders for this Minnesota Wild team, they already did. The Wild offered Marco Rossi to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for forward Aatu Raty, goaltender Artur Silovs, and a first-round pick, which was the 15th overall in 2025 in that draft, who was Braden Cooch. So we know that this trade ultimately would have been, arguably would have been a win for this Minnesota Wild roster. It certainly would have been a even trade looking at what you would get. Artur Silovs wasn't really necessarily a need, but Aatu Raty filled the hole that Marco Rossi would leave. But that conversation still sparks around right now, as if the Vancouver Canucks almost seem like they missed out on that deal after rejecting the original one. So the conversation right now has been very interesting between the Wild and the Canucks, between all these reports. It certainly seems like the Wild are the top suitors, a team that is okay with acquiring Kiefer Sherwood, although they are very smart and they know what they're doing by acknowledging that he's not necessarily the greatest player. And I feel like when you're comparing what these players bring, and more so taking a look at how you see this coming from this team, when it goes down to having a look at Kiefer Sherwood, 30 games, 16 points, you're comparing that to Marco Rossi, who would have been in that trade. Someone that you wouldn't want to give up in a deal for Kiefer Sherwood. 17 games, 13 points. 3 less points in nearly half the games. Marco Rossi is, for sure, when healthy, the far better player, the far better outcome of this, regardless of this year or the next 5 years. And the fact that you're looking at a team that is trying to get rid of Kiefer Sherwood for a first-round pick and a player who's on the current roster just goes to show how much of a joke the Vancouver Canucks organization actually is. And I'd be willing to say that fans know that as well. But when you're looking at the extension side of things as well, this kind of adds on to it. He's looking for a $5 million or north of that on a 6-year deal. So realistically, you are overpaying for Kiefer Sherwood significantly. You know, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. He's not worth this. He will not be worth this. But right now, the way he's acting, the way he's playing, I don't know if the Vancouver Canucks are trying to scam some teams into thinking that that pace will, first of all, be kept up. Second of all, he'll do that over the coming years. I mean, the guy's not old. He's 30. But once he gets to 2 or 3 years into this contract, you're going to see him become one of the most average players in the NHL. And at this point right now, it makes zero sense for the Wild to give up what the Canucks are reportedly looking for in a first-round pick plus a roster player from the Wild. The prospect, that is the maximum. But going into this, there still will be conversations. We know that conversations still will be had. And not just that. Nearly, every bone in my body is saying that this is probably the worst trade the Wild could do. I didn't hate the idea. You know that from the past few videos. But when you're looking at what could either be, let's just say, Marco Rossi for terms of, without having a first-round pick, or a roster player, it would be Marco Rossi for Kiefer Sherwood, or it would be any other roster player. Let's throw someone in the mix, anybody on this roster right now, and a first-round pick for Kiefer Sherwood. Plus the extension, it would make zero sense. The Wild would never do it. We know they would never do it. And with the money, it just makes zero sense. Compared to Rossi, on that $5 million deal now, he's 24. They have him as an RFA after. They have the option if they wanted to keep him. They can. We know there was conversation going on between the Wild and Rossi during free agency as to what that plan is going to be. But they have their guy locked down. It doesn't matter if, Bill Guerin thinks that Marco Rossi is someone that will fit the roster years down the line. You're going to keep him because you can, you will, and you have a better player than Kiefer Sherwood in Marco Rossi. So there's a few things there that certainly are finding that kind of interesting part of the NHL trade reports. And I want to know what you guys think about this as well. With these updates, are you less inclined now to even consider a trade option since the Vancouver Canucks are giving some horrible offers? Let me know what you think here in the comments below. But we do have a few more updates here in this video, touching on a little bit of last night and where the roster currently stands. And last night, of course, Zuccarello, or I guess this morning, wherever you want to say it, Zuccarello, Middleton, and now Sturm injured for a team without Marco Rossi, Marcus Foligno, and Vinny Hinostroza. This team is so injured, but they showed some fight last night in a very character win against the Kraken. Won it for Matt Zuccarello is really what it seems like. But in this game, Joel Eriksson Ek played fantastic, arguably his best game of the year. One guy I want to give a shout out to as well, who's out the bottom, is Yakov Trenin. Playing very well as of late. Playing very, very well. Skating well. Playing smart. And he, although, he's at the bottom here, he really shouldn't be because the way he looked on the ice, regardless of his actual production, it's what we need out of a guy like Yakov Trenin. So, very good game for this team here. Very few in the minus, which is obviously a very positive sign. But going into that as well, we have this. Matt Zuccarello is doing okay, but doesn't know the timeline. Didn't also have an update on Jake Middleton, who did not finish the game. Comes from Sarah McLennan, coming from John Hynes originally. But this Wild team has a few things now that need to be sorted out. The roster has been up and down this year with injuries, so hopefully we get that sorted out soon. Hopefully, these guys are fine, and it may just be a day-to-day, game-by-game basis, and hopefully it is not long-term. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of that trade as well. Some crazy things are going on in the Minnesota Wild team and the organization, and we're going to be breaking it all down here on the channel, so be sure to hit that sub button. But it is all I have. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.